Welcome, Vault Dwellers. My name is Nacho Bidness, and there's my main build character, Nacho. And we're going to do a little tutorial on how to wire up this workshop space that I showed in my player home tour here at Fairline Hills Estates. If you'd like to take a look at the entire build and hear about some channel news, go take a look at that video. This build mainly came from a comment from a subscriber named Russ Profit, who in short in my not gate tutorial asked, can that system be used to operate traps outside a building which houses your loot to keep settlers out, then be turned off when you want to retrieve something from your stash? And the answer is absolutely yes. Now, I'll show you how to build this, but first, let me show you how it operates. Right now, we've got some shotgun turrets protecting this, as well as a number of traps. And anybody that approaches this door is going to trip this electric eye. Now, I probably could have made this look better, maybe hit it a little bit more, but this build is mainly to serve as a framework for the tutorial rather than to look overwhelmingly cool. At any rate, if we approach the door, all of the traps activate, and my character's level 194, so he kind of shrugs this stuff off, but any settler would be incinerated and electrocuted and irradiated simultaneously. If we would like to approach that door without harming ourselves, we can hit this switch and the lights turn on inside, and we can come through the door and access our stash. Now, real world thing here. Unfortunately, settlers can spawn anywhere inside a settlement, and so even inside of a locked room, settlers can sometimes occasionally spawn. If you would like to have settlers not steal your loot, the best thing to do is store it in containers outside of the workshop system. So don't store your loot inside of your workbenches. Don't store them inside of your armor bench or your chemistry bench or anything else. Store it instead in things like your tool chest here or these cabinets up here, and generally settlers will leave that stuff alone. But for roleplay purposes and for the reason of just wanting to make something that looks cool, certainly we can build a lockable room with some traps on the outside, and we can even make it so that we can activate those traps and lock ourselves in that room if we so desire. So let's move on to the tutorial. It's not going to require any mods, but there is a couple of mods in particular that will make it easier, and I'll discuss those in the tutorial portion of the video. So in preparation for my build, I have gone through and torn out all of the electrical in the garage section of this house. The only thing I've got left is the door, because it was a pain to place, and that T from the neon sign, because for some reason I can't seem to grab it. I have also very deliberately left all of the lights on inside the house here. We'll get to why that is important, but for some reason my ceiling fan doesn't want to seem to be working. Sometimes you have to tap them to get them going. I'm not really sure why that is, but anyway, yeah, so we can get started here by first putting some conduits down. Now, I have routed power from my generator around the side of the garage over here using insulated conduits, but that's just to make life a little bit easier. From now on out, we're going to use everything that is available to PS4 players, except for there's like one light that I like that isn't on PS4, but either way, we're going to use vanilla conduits and logic gates and everything so that anybody can do this build if they'd like to follow along. You can do it with one of these Fairline Hill houses or something that you have built yourself. So let's go ahead and start off by getting a couple of conduits to route power out to the end of the driveway for our remote switch. So we're going to take everything off of this conduit right here. That's going to serve as the input for our contraption. So we'll put another conduit out there at the end of the driveway, and let's see if it wants to hook up. It does. Sweet, no wire glitch there. And let's get a switched power pylon out here and hook that there. So I said hook that there. So now we've got our first switch, and I'm going to go ahead and disable this door. It's not something that PS4 players couldn't work around. It's just convenient to be able to disable it. Now we'll put our wall switch down on the inside of the garage. That's going to allow us to lock the door inside behind ourselves, and come over here and hook some power to it. Next thing we're going to need is a couple of logic gates. The first one that we need is the not and gate, which says unless all inputs have power, it transmits power. So when we turn off either of our switches, it will stop transmitting power. Now the other thing we're going to need is a NOT gate. That way we can invert the logic and have one thing turn on when something else turns off. So we'll go ahead and hook both of our switches to that NOT AND gate. There we go. And the wire misses the basketball goal. I wanted that. That's good. And now we can hook up the output of our NOT AND. One output goes to the NOT gate, which you can see right now. The output of the NOT gate is live. We're going to use that to power our door. The other thing that we're going to need is we're going to need a conduit to run all of our traps and defenses. So I'm just going to set that guy right there, and you can use place anywhere or you can use a wire glitch to get this outside and set that down. And I actually already know that I'm going to want another conduit there, so I'm going to go ahead and set that down. Now we're ready to wire our defenses. You can see that right now they're off, which is good. I want to wire all this stuff off so I don't accidentally kill myself. So I had some traps, and the first was a saw blade trap that was just running back and forth continuously in front of the door when the door was closed. So we'll wire that up, and just for fun, let's put a spotlight on the front of the garage here and hook that up. Of course, it's off at the moment. And well, we also had a couple of shotgun turrets that were running while the door was closed. So we're just going to set these down kind of right about here and hook those to our conduits in our trap circuits. We also had a bunch of traps that were running off of an electric eye switch. What these electric eye switches do is they act like any other switch. When you can see the red beam, the switch is open and the things that are hooked to it will not run. So that means that only when someone walks through it does it close and send power to things further down the circuit. So I can put a couple of flamethrower traps down here, and I can put a couple of radiation emitters down, and a couple of Tesla traps. And as long as I wire all this stuff on the far side of that electric eye switch, they'll only turn on when someone walks through. So you can see that I made sure to connect the flamethrower trap to this switch and not the conduit. Now, if you're familiar with my builds at all, you know that I enjoy a very messy style with lots of wires going everywhere. I just like the way that that looks. But I don't care for wires that are going through an area where a character would walk. So I am going to hide a couple of conduits below this driveway, and that way we can route power under the driveway and not have a wire going through where a character would be walking through. And that's something that you could do with a pillar glitch or a rug glitch on PS4. So now our wires are hidden underneath, and all of our traps and defenses are wired. All this stuff will go live as soon as we turn off either of the switches. And I think that we're just about done except for the lighting. Actually, there's one last thing. We need to actually hook power to that door, and we're also going to want a conduit that is only live when the door's open. So I'm actually just going to put a conduit in here and hook that to the door itself so that we know for sure that that conduit's only live when the door is open. Let's go ahead and test everything that we've set up so far. We can come in here and make sure that the lights still turn off in the house, and that's good. All the lights turned off in the house just the way we wanted. Now let's check and make sure that we can lock ourselves into the garage. We can. You probably heard the saw blade trap on the outside go and get started. In fact, we left it right in front of the door. And we can come out here and hit this switch, and all of our defenses are active. And if we walk through this electric eye, of course, if we are a regular settler, we would be incinerated. As a level 197 guy, I can just kind of stand in these flamethrowers and go like, it's warm. You do have to manually reset these laser tripwires. I have not found a way to have those automatically reset without using them out of the contraptions that is actually more meant for the conveyor belts. Other point that I'll make here is that if I was doing a quote-unquote real build here, I'd probably try and hide these behind some sandbags or a wall or something, just so that it was a little bit less obvious what was going to happen if you walked up there. Nevertheless, we are all done except for setting up our lights. Now, everything that we have done so far, it's not been all that critical that we do everything in the exact correct order. But what we're going to do now absolutely has to be done in the order that I show you if you don't want to break the lights in your adjacent structure and have them not assigned to this switch anymore. So you may have just noticed a little cut in the video, and that is because after warning everyone to follow the steps that I'm about to show you in the exact order that I'm going to show you, I went and did things out of order and broke all of my lights and had to load a previous save. The way that we assign lights to the conduit that we so choose, that trick boiled down is as follows. Only add lights to a conduit with power when that conduit is the only thing with power in the area. Conversely, only add power to a conduit when other lights that you don't want assigned to the conduit are already powered. Because whenever a light sees power applied to a conduit for the first time, it will immediately link to that conduit. Let me show you how this works in this particular situation. So right now I've got this conduit that it's live when the door is open. I'd like to have some lights in the garage that are on only when the door is open. I currently have lights in the house that are hooked to this switch that I would like to have these lights in the house only turn on when that switch is on. So to prevent breaking the link between the lights in the house and the switch, I need to apply power to this conduit when the lights in the house are already on. But I also need to make sure that when I put lights down in the garage that light switch in the house is off. Additionally, these conduits on the side of the foundation here cannot have power in them, and if I have any kind of power going to that conduit that's linked to the rest of my contraption, they'll have power in them. So we end up with this complicated little situation, but it's not all that hard to get out of. Like I said, we just have to follow these steps exactly so that we do things in the right order and make sure that the lights only see the conduits with power that we want. So the first thing that I want to do here is I'm going to remove this wire to this conduit so that it is isolated. And the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to make sure that the lights in the house are on. They are. And I am going to glitch power from my generator to that conduit in the garage. What that does for me is I have now added power to this conduit while the lights in the house are still on and connected to the switch. See here, I can hit that switch and the house lights turn on and off. Now the next thing that I need to do is I need to make sure that this conduit is the only thing in the entire area with any power. That's why I always put a switch between my generator and the rest of my power circuit. So I'm going to turn this switch off, and what that does for me is it removes all the power in these conduits on the side of the foundation, and it removes power to the switch in the house. The situation now is that the lights in the house are still linked to this switch even though there's no power in it. Now the next thing I can do is get into my garage and set up my lights in here. Now it's very important that at no point do I touch any of my wiring or the conduit or anything else. So for example, had that conduit actually been placed on this door wall, it would move when I grab the door and it would break my light assignments. And so we can go over here and get into USO and get a couple of lights for the ceiling. I like these fluorescent light fixtures for a garage. They look like they belong in a garage. I'm not going to worry about making those straight. And I'm also going to get into Creative Clutter because there is a light in Creative Clutter that I think looks particularly good on workbenches. It's a work light on an arm, and it's clearly not critical to this build, but I really like the Creative Clutter mod, and I take opportunities to show it off where I can. So I'm just gonna turn the global collision off for just a minute to get this light kind of set down on the workbench about where I want and place it, and that's ready to go. This light's kind of cool because you can actually walk up to it and turn it on and off even outside of the build mode. And we had some neon lights on the outside of the garage. That T, by the way, for some reason I am unable to grab that and scrap it, and its assignment is broken, so it unfortunately is just going to have to be a malfunctioning light, but that's okay. Not everything has to be perfect. This is, after all, just a tutorial, and I think I had a step 2 was a question mark, and step 3 was profit. So we'll just put that down so that Russ will be able to see his name in lights, and as Draco says, this video will be seen by literally dozens of people. Although with the view counts on my channel, it might be seen by literally 12 people. At any rate, we've got all of our lights set down, and they are assigned to the conduit inside the garage. Now the next part is especially tricky. We have to turn power back on and make sure that we don't accidentally go and add power to conduits while the power in the house is off. So I'm going to get back out of the build mode and come back over here and turn my generator back on. And just to test, we can see that the lights in the house are still functioning properly. At this point, the door is open, and the final step here, and the last place where we can mess up, is the order in which we connect the wires back up to this conduit. So the first thing we have to do here is go from conduit to the rest of the contraption, and then store the last wire that was the glitch wire to the generator. That way we didn't add or remove power to lights with the lights already off. Or sorry, add or remove power to a conduit with the lights off. Let's test and make sure that everything is working properly. So there we go. The lights on the garage turned off, except for that T that I already mentioned was not something I was able to grab and scrap. We can turn everything on and off in the garage. With the garage lights on, we'll go in here and check and make sure that the house lights do indeed turn off. They do. Awesome. And final check of the final position. Indeed, all the lights are off in the garage when we hit that switch. So that's all the different possible conditions that we just checked. So there you go. That is a little bunker build using the NOT gate. Again, thanks very much to Russ Profit for an insightful comment that made for what I hope is a good tutorial. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button down below. And if you want to see more, be sure and subscribe. If you didn't like, please tell me why in the comments so that I can try and do better next time. Until next time, my name is Nacho Bidness, and I'm saying it's a great big wasteland out there. Let's go have fun in it.